In this update, we are watching a slow moving cool front continuing to drift further south. Out ahead of it, we do have a round of showers and thunderstorms, and some of those actually could turn severe. But that cooler air promises to dip even further south, extending the overall cooler anomalies and increasing their rain chances. Plus, we'll highlight the tropics as they're starting to wake up in the extended range. So let's take a look at the overall vorticity map for your Friday. You can see this upper level low that left all the severe storms across the northern plains and some of the areas across the upper Great Lakes has now drifted further into Canada. But there you can see along that cool front really marked across this region right here, highlighted across the upper Great Lakes, getting into Michigan, those areas across northern Illinois, back into Missouri, extending all the way into the Oklahoma panhandle as well as the Texas panhandle. That's where the cool front lies. And of course, out back behind it, you're definitely feeling that cooler air this morning, especially for those areas across the Intermountain West. We've got widespread 40s and even some 30s showing up on the map. There's even one area of 28 degrees. So you're definitely feeling the chill in the air this morning, but it's extremely dry back behind that front. But you can see the leading edge right now. It's dropped actually all the way down to 68 there in Amarillo. And that is only the beginning stages of that slower moving front continuing to drift further south. But it'll also bring a round of showers and thunderstorms. So along that boundary from New Mexico, from northwest Texas, back into Oklahoma, areas into Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, into Ohio this afternoon, that's where you're going to be seeing the main bulk of the energy of scattered showers along that front. We do have a subtle little upper level low disturbances. It's non-tropical, but it's right there along the coast. So if you live right along the coastal communities, right along Galveston, Beaumont, Port Arthur, back into Lake Charles, those areas likely get inundated with some very heavy rain this afternoon, and that could lead into this weekend as well. So if we take a look at the setup heading into tomorrow, yeah, that slow moving cool front, and I mean it is definitely going to be slow. It almost stalls out or even lingers at times, but right there you're going to have that overrunning type setup, and that leading edge, a little bit more instability across areas of the mid-Atlantic and portions of the Northeast. Some of those actually could be turning severe. You can see the high pressure back behind it. That is indicative of the drier air. So although you are cooler now up across back behind that front, dry air typically heats up fairly quickly. So on the backside, we are going to be seeing those temperatures rise in a big way, especially across California, much of the Northwest, those areas across the Intermountain West. Those temperatures are going to be rising big time as we get into the extended range, but they're going to be lowering further south, especially across the southern plains, where they're along that cool front that's just going to be sitting there for days and days and days, kicking up rounds of showers and thunderstorms across that region. But heading into tomorrow, we've got to be concerned a little bit more instability that's highlighted across the northern branch. Those areas could turn severe in the heat of the afternoon from Albany back to Pittsburgh into the Charleston region, as well as into Richmond. You're talking those areas into Baltimore, into DC, had to be on high alert. That could extend even as far east as Hartford, Connecticut. So definitely be on the lookout for some of those strong to severe thermals that have those, 60 to 65 mile per hour wind gust. Some isolated pockets of larger hail encompassing from likely 1 inch, possibly up to 1.75 inch in variety. And you definitely can't roll out maybe an isolated spin up tornado within this region as well, going into tomorrow. But there's the cool front. You can see the leading edge of that front will be drifting further south into Kansas, as well as into Oklahoma, back into a good part of Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. This is actually going to be the coolest air they've seen really all summer long, as meteorologically fall starts on September 1st. So all the records end for summer, all the records start for fall, going officially for on September 1st with meteorologically fall. But you can see the ridge of high pressure back behind it as that drier air will cool right now, but it also heats up, right? So back behind it, we are going to be seeing more ridging start to build back behind that front. And that ridging is really going to be starting to elevate those temperatures again across the west, across the Intermountain West. Those regions are likely going to be heating up. Complements of that ridge of high pressure going to be building further north and northwest, while much of the areas across the south we're going to be eliminating out of that high pressure. They've been locked under that heat dome pretty much almost all summer long. They're finally going to get a reprieve, not with just a one-day wonder cool front, but it's going to be an extended period of time, and likely the extension heading into those fall months of much cooler anomalies for those areas further south, as the cool front doesn't look to go anywhere anytime soon. And so as long as it's around, it's going to keep those cooler anomalies alive, and it's going to keep the rain chances as alive as well in the extended period. So if you're looking at some of the temperature anomalies heading into your first day of September, yes, where the ridge of high pressure, you're talking 10, 15, upwards to almost 20 degrees above average at times. Along that cool front, you have the anomalies of 5 to 10 degrees below average. I know it didn't seem like much, but this area has been locked in the above average temperatures for an extended period of time, especially further south you live. And look where it really cools off. Yeah, you're talking those areas in West Texas. Yeah, that area is in bone dry conditions and actually has the cooler anomalies. In fact, we have a little area of low pressure that's likely going to form out of New Mexico, going to be extending into West Texas, and that's going to be elevating those rain chances in a big way, and actually could produce some heavier rain showers as we head into Monday and especially Tuesday across West Texas. They could be looking at maybe a couple of inches of rainfall, but it's kind of feast or famine, folks. Back behind that front, it's going to be high and dry. So you're cooler now, but you're going to heat up in a big way with that drier air. And where the cool front's going to be stalling out, that's where the cooler anomalies are going to unfold, and keeping those rain chances alive across the southern plains and much of the southeast, getting into the Carolinas. But look at the where we stand on Monday with that little upper level low dynamics in the atmosphere. That's going to elevate that humidity values upwards to almost 100%, which is pretty much unheard of in these desert-like conditions where most of the humidity stays in the single digits, if not in the teens, for many months. So it's unusual to see the humidity values so high, and that's complements of this low pressure center is going to be impacting this region and producing some of those heavier rains. And you could actually get some flooding rains out here going into Monday with that stalled frontal boundary. And you can definitely see the demarcation line where that front is literally going to lie. So where that lies to the south of there's where your rain chances are. To the north of there, you're going to be kind of high and dry back behind that front. So it's kind of feast or famine, but also the cooler anomalies will unfold as well for your Labor Day, as a good 10 to 15, almost 20 degrees when they're usually baking across this region for Labor Day weekend. They're going to be anything but that, with definitely the cooler anomalies, and that will extend all the way up into the northeast, while much of that ridge of high pressure will continue to be baked under that heat dome into the northwest. And as soon as you think it's going to be taking over the heat dome again, we're going to actually have another reinforcing shot come back in as well later on in the period. So if you break down the precipitation front over the next 5 to 6 days, you can definitely see back behind that front, we've pretty much got high and dry conditions. Heat, it builds up quickly, but it also, a lot of sinking air is going to be, inundating this region, and there's not much precipitation. It's really going to be along this front, and the south of the front And where that low pressure is highlighted across West Texas, they're going to be in the heavier rain bucket. And where that low pressure is highlighted along the coast, yes, they could be looking at some flooding rains, because even this air mass, if this just extends another 50 miles or so further north, you could be looking at extensive flooding along these coastal regions. So you definitely got to be on high alert with this little low pressure center that's just hanging out over the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But nonetheless, these are some beneficial rains, even some drought-stricken areas of Kentucky into Tennessee. For those areas across West Virginia, gonna get some beneficial rains, and the cooler anomalies will continue to unfold even into Wednesday. So again, the cool front just kind of sits there pretty much for an extended period of time, and you try to warm up on the backside, but we already have another cooler air mass building up there in Canada. And by the time we head into late next week, we've got another reinforcing shot of that cooler air entering the Ohio Valley, much of the Upper Peninsula there in the Great Lakes, and that will extend back into those areas across the Tennessee Valley and likely expand as we head into next weekend with that reinforcing shot of cooler air, while much of the west and to the northwest continues to remain on that higher and drier side as well. But yeah, going into next weekend, again, even with the front still in the reinforcing shot, you're still going to be remaining on the below average side and continuing those rain chances alive pretty much on a daily basis, with that cooler air just kind of sitting there and causing that overrunning type setup, again, for an extended period of time. And then we'll be watching the tropics. Of course, it's been a very quiet August and now they're kind of coming alive as we head into September. So right now, the National Hurricane Center does in fact have two areas, which would likely be Francine and Gordon. The first one we have to be highlighting is Francine. Right now we have a 50% probability of trying to develop in the next 7 days. The one back behind that has a little bit lesser probability. And in the extended range, if we look at some of the ensemble guidance, this continues to remain westbound. Now, this is not going to happen anytime soon. It likely won't even become a storm until another 5 to 7 days from now. So you're talking, again, sometime late next week, maybe even extended into next weekend. It's likely going to be anywhere into the Caribbean vicinity, near actually Jamaica. So I think Jamaica's got to be on high alert from this particular system. But there are some ensemble guidance trying to continue to push this possibly into the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll be watching this in the extended range, but nonetheless, it looks like more precipitation would likely unfold into the extended range, into the southeast and much of the east coast, while back behind it, the latter half of the system, potentially Gordon, has a little bit more favorable probability because it's a little bit further north and it's already extending in the extended range further north. And this one looks like more of a fish storm than anything else, but we'll be watching this as time goes on. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after the storm.